our oldest enemy, not viruses or famine, but in our own bodies, the accidental traitor in our body. The story starts with a torture in the living room. In 1810, 58-years-old novelist Fanny Burney unfortunately suffered from breast cancer. The only hope was to lie on the operating table and be handed over to 7 men with steel knives. There was no anesthesia at that time. She recalled in a letter to her sister that the steel knife pierced her breast, cutting through veins, arteries, muscles, and nerves. She could clearly feel the scalpel scraping on her chest bones. With repeated scraping, the 20-minute process of disembowelment must have felt like a lifetime to her, but it also miraculously gave her 29 more years. This is the first creed of human beings against cancer, a rule written in blood and screams. Find it and dig it out. However, when anesthesia eliminated the cries on the operating table, the treatment of breast cancer became even more cruel. The one who pushed this cruelty to the peak was the father of modern surgery in America, William Halsted. He introduced surgical gloves just to protect the hands of his beloved nurses. He also dared to remove his mother's gallbladder at home. But the other side of this genius was when he was studying cocaine. He unfortunately became a slave to drugs, and later was addicted to morphine in rehab. Perhaps it was the paranoia brought by drugs that made Halsted believe cancer was like a drop of ink spilled on a tablecloth. It would spread radially outward. The only cure is to cut off this tablecloth, and all the suspicious tissue around it. Everything must be cut off. In 1894, he proposed radical mastectomy. It was like an excavation project. The blade not only reached the breast, but also the pectoral muscles and lymph nodes. Sometimes even the ribs were removed. Halsted's method allowed 40% of patients to live for 5 years. But almost at the same time, British surgeon Stephen Paget, after studying 735 cases, found that cancer cells did not spread like ink, but rather like seeds traveling through the blood to distant soil, where they take root and sprout. Paget was right, but his voice was drowned out by the halo of Halsted's heroism. His discovery was drowned out for nearly a century. During this period, thousands of women suffered unnecessary damage on the operating table, sacrificed to a wrong theory. When the limits of the scalpel were exposed, humans began to prey to 2 invisible weapons. One is radium, discovered by the Curie couple, which emits deadly rays like magic, causing cancer tissue to necrotize and shrink. For a time, radium became a sacred relic sent by God to end cancer. It was made into creams that made skin glow, and even chocolate and toothpaste containing radium. However, the myth was quickly and tragically shattered. The first to fall were the workers who were in close contact with radium. Young female workers who applied radium-based luminous paint on the dial were taught to suck the nibs with their lips. They swallowed radium every day. After work, they would have a charming glow. They were jokingly called Radium Girls. A few years later, their teeth fell out for no reason, and their mandibles shattered like hollowed-out wood. Their whole bodies were in severe pain, and they died. Meanwhile, the loyal consumers of radium also paid the price of life. American billionaire buyers drank about 1,400 bottles of radium water in 2 years. In 1930, his jaw began to necrose and fall off. Uncontrolled tumors grew all over his body. The black humor in the newspapers said that radium water was effective, until his chin fell off. And eventually, he became a testimonial for radium. The birth of another weapon originated from hell. During World War II, a U.S. warship carrying chemical weapons, ship loaded with mustard gas, was hit by the Germans. The military doctor found that this gas had a devastating impact on dividing white blood cells. Could the gas kill normal cells? Could it also kill the dividing and more aggressive cancer cells? After the war, this idea was brought into the laboratory. Scientists used a mustard gas derivative, nitrogen mustard, on a patient with advanced lymphoma. The patient's huge tumor shrank rapidly in a few days. Modern chemotherapy thus emerged from the ugliest invention of mankind. Since then, the 3 classic therapies of surgery, radiotherapy, and chemotherapy achieved great success in the mid to late 20th century. But they were like carpet bombing. While destroying cancer cells, they also turned the patient's body into scorched earth. The real turning point happened after the molecular biology revolution. Scientists began to delve into the interior of cells to decipher the genetic code that drives cancer. They found that the out-of-control growth of many cancers originated from the mutation of 1 or 2 key genes. In 2001, the first targeted drug, imatinib, was born. It precisely targeted the unique error gene. Overnight, a formerly fatal disease became a chronic disease that could be controlled. However, cancer cells, the masters of evolution, always find new mutations to escape. Eventually, scientists turned their attention to our bodies, the one that had been long ignored, the most powerful army, the immune system. We once thought the immune system was just blind and couldn't see the cancer cells disguised as its own. But in the 21st century, scientists discovered that cancer cells had evolved a perfect set of diplomatic skills. It actively shakes hands with the brake molecules on the surface and politely hands over a pass for their own people, thus paralyzing the entire army. This discovery gave birth to immunotherapy. Its role is not to directly attack cancer cells, but to kick away the deceptive hand between cancer cells. It removes the brakes of the immune system, allowing the immune system to recognize and eliminate the traitors. And CAR therapy takes this concept to the extreme. Scientists extract T cells from patients and, through genetic engineering in vitro, equip them with a navigation head that can accurately identify cancer cells. Then they put these modified super soldiers back into the body. These T cells become a living drug, cruising and hunting on the homeland until death. But this is ultimately a war with our own destiny. It's far from over, or even never, because cancer is not an external invader but ourselves. It is an ordinary cell in our body. After experiencing billions of ordinary replications, by chance, it breaks free from the ancient shackles called collective interests, and it has the most primitive and most selfish impulse of infinite value. Added, it uses all the good mechanisms we give life, vascular growth factors, metabolism, to betray life itself. It is the inevitable result of human lifespan extension, and it is also the life paradox, but towards self-destruction. When individual cells pursue infinity, it is doomed to disrupt the overall order. As species get closer to longevity, the more traitors there are in the body. So we may never be able to invent a perfect weapon to completely eliminate betrayal. But what we are learning is to shift from eradication to control, from war to peacekeeping. We will eventually define the upper limit of health. Cancer may still exist that day, but it will lose the qualification to dominate fate.